You're listening to the A Bit From Within podcast with Felicia Marty. Hello there, and thank you so much for joining me today for a new episode of the A Bit From Within podcast. My name is Felicia. I am a self-care specialist and a certified astrologer, among other things. And every week I come here to share a little bit from within on this podcast. I know that for many of you who are listening, you've been following my story for a while, but I always feel like it's important to share that quick recap sometimes for those who are maybe newer, getting to know my story. Today on the podcast, we are going to be talking about releasing control and how important that piece is when you're in a place of resistance. Because I think it's very common. In fact, it's a very normal part of life to feel like you want things to go a certain way and things don't happen that way. And you're allowed to have big feelings about it. I mean, think of little kids when you're little and you're a toddler and something is not going your way. Think of the amount of emotion that brings up. And it's something that hopefully over time we learn how to practice. We learn how to hold space for ourselves. We learn how to keep our calm even when things aren't going as we planned. But it's still very hard. And I think that even as we get older, especially because we're practicing not always getting our way in big ways, sometimes it's the little things, like you feel like you just can't catch a break, that really start to break you. And actually, honestly, that's the perfect setup, because this entire weekend, I feel like I've been in a deep place of resistance. In fact, I was feeling this way all weekend and all day today. Today wasn't quite as bad, although I felt very tired this morning. And I sat down to record the podcast, and I was feeling so much anxiety. Like this, and honestly, that's where I've been all day, is I've been feeling such a deep sense of anxiety that it's almost the kind where it feels like it makes you nauseous. Like you feel like you could just go throw up, because that's how much anxiety is boiling through you. And I feel this physically in my body. Today is Memorial Day that I'm recording this, and I honestly didn't even realize that I would have this day off from my normal day job until about Thursday of last week. And when I realized this, I was like, oh my God, yes, I'm so excited. I need a 3-day weekend so bad. I am exhausted. I'm tired. I'm actually getting ready to leave for a work trip this week. There's quite a bit of travel going on. And just honestly, I haven't stopped. I haven't slowed down while I've been going through this crazy life change. I've been working full time even while moving across the country. It's been three-ish weeks since we moved into our house, and it's just been nonstop. And I shared quite a bit of stories last week about just the little things that we're starting to feel like too much. And I will say that this week was not a big change. It still feels like everything feels very difficult, and I'm feeling that deep place of resistance, and I'm trying my best to stay present and to release control. Now, I'm going to have to come back to that here in a second, but I want to catch you up just on a couple of the things. I'm going to share a bit from within with you all about this point, but I do want to take a brief moment and to pause and just do our astro check-in. So every week I like to just share a little bit of what's going on astrologically. And this week we are coming up on a full moon. So Saturday, June 4th is this month's full moon. And this will be a full moon that is in the sign of Sagittarius. One thing to know, and I feel like it's been years since I've said this, and it may well have been, or it may have just been last month. That's where we're at with that. But every full moon astrologically is when the moon is opposite the sun in the zodiac signs. So yes, that's true astronomically. The sun and moon are opposite of each other. That's how the sun can shine all of its beautiful light on the moon, which is what we see when it's full. But astrologically, this is also when the sun and the moon are in different signs. So the sun just moved into Gemini last week, and we talked a little bit last week about Gemini self-care, about how the importance of being a learner, being communicative, being creative, being social, getting those ideas going. That's very important this month ahead, probably up until the summer solstice here on June 21st. And as the moon this weekend is going to move into the sign of Sagittarius. And remember, the moon moves very quickly, so it only stays in one sign for about 2-ish days. So as the moon moves into its fullness right now, it's going to be in the sign of Sagittarius. The moon in Sag is this warm, beautiful place. It's filled with this boisterous energy. Sagittarius is, in my opinion, it's quieter than Gemini, but it's still quite loud and bold. It moves with this kind of effervescent energy. It's very optimistic. It's very big. It's very boisterous. Sagittarius is very closely aligned with Jupiter, this larger than life planet that always is benefic, that always brings good fortune and abundance and things. So when the moon is in Sagittarius, there's this feeling of big ideas, big learning, big dreams, wanting to travel, wanting to experience something larger. And so since full moons are these times of oppositions, one of the things that you might start to feel like you're coming up against is the big dreams of your life. How are you going to get there? How are you going to take these big, grand gestures, these big moments that you want to tap into and kind of escape into even sometimes? And then how are you going to commit to the little things that are going to get you there? Those little pops of learning that you need, the communication that you need to have, the boundaries that you need to set, the little things that you need to get done in order to make those big things happen. And this might feel in direct conflict with each other, right? You might feel like there's way too many little things to do that you can never get to the big stuff. Or you may feel like you want to get to the big stuff so bad that you don't have any patience for the little things. And my belief is that during these full moons is these times of surrender, where we have to say, okay, both are true. There is space for both. And one of the things I've just fallen in love with working with the lunar cycles and understanding astrology, the way that I've learned it, is that every single year is a chance for us to practice this in a different way. It's every single late spring that we enter this Sagittarius full moon. And it's this moment where we can find something new in our lives. It's not going to be the same way as it was last year, right? You're not in the same place. You're not doing the same things. You're not having the same obstacles. Maybe some things have carried over, but in general, it's probably a little bit different. So I want you to think of that as you move into this week. One of the things that you might have been feeling this weekend, as you kind of reflect back on the past weekend that you had, is this feeling of conflict. This happens whenever the moon is square the sun. So this happens at the first quarter moon and then again at the last quarter moon. So we're no stranger to this, right? Twice a lunar cycle. And if we think about it, this happens all of the time in our life. We find the obstacles, we find the challenge, we feel it in our body, we meet it in our life. And every time we move through something like this, it's a chance for us to practice. In fact, this idea of practicing is something I've been thinking about all week. I saw on TikTok this clip of Michelle Obama talking about what we practice. That who you are every day is what you are practicing becoming. So you can't, spend your money frivolously, so to speak, and then think that you are practicing saving money or being good with money, right? Whatever you do is what you're practicing being. And I've been thinking about this a lot, just like, what am I practicing being? This is something I think about often because I think we are sometimes like the full moon, right? We're in this opposition of it. We have this idea of what we want to be, and then we practice something different. And we don't do that on purpose. We don't mean to practice being the opposite of what we're trying to be. It's that we are operating the way that we learned how, or the way that feels most familiar to us, or the way that feels like it is protecting us somehow. And so I've been thinking about that this week as I've been, oh gosh, you guys, I feel like in so many ways, I am just starting to become unraveled a little bit, probably because I had to be so tightly wound in order to get through this major life change that I just did. I know I've been talking about this a lot, and you can feel free to go back to some of my more recent episodes to hear a little bit more about me sharing my recent transition. But I'll just, for the sake of anyone who's new listening, I recently relocated from Denver to the North Country of New York, living in Champlain Valley. And life has changed significantly. You know, we went from living in a 2-bedroom townhome in a very big, huge city, outside of a huge city, to living on a, half-acre property in a very small town. And it feels like, life changed like in the snap of your fingers. But it also took a lot longer than that. And it's been a whirlwind. And it is one that I am so grateful for, and one that I'm starting just to feel very tired from experiencing. But also, well, let me pause and tell you a story about my lilacs, because this lilac story is kind of how I'm feeling in my own life right now. Like I just mentioned, we just bought a piece of property. We have these beautiful lilacs. We moved in at the beginning of May. This is right. I mean, at least here, May has been lilac central. It has been incredible. And these lilacs were like this amazing gift, like this welcome, like a welcome home present from the land, right? They're right at the front of our property. So every time we pull in, we just see these gorgeous lilacs. And what's so cool is the way that they were planted originally. They're in this beautiful ombre effect. So the ones, one side is like this dark purple lilac, and they get kind of progressively lighter as the bushes kind of go on, and ending with this white lilac. So they've just been incredible, and all month long they've been blooming, and they smell incredible, and they're amazing. Like, they remind me of home, they remind me of my childhood, they remind me of my mom. They're just incredible. But again, we're new around here, and in fact, this property had been flipped, and before it was flipped by the recent owners, it had been sitting here for a couple years, just without anyone caretaking it, like without anyone tending to it. And so there's a lot of there's so much landscaping, but there's a lot of it that needs a little bit of work. And in fact, these lilacs, as gorgeous as they are, like, I've been noticing that they're also a little out of control. And I'm trying to give everything the best chance that I can give it. I'm also trying to get outside more, because I think that being outside in nature helps with anxiety and self-care for me. I have a Taurus moon. It's very good for me to be out in nature. So I knew, being out of town this week, I knew that this was the weekend to prune my lilacs. Now, this is scary for multiple reasons. One, I've never pruned lilacs before, okay? I don't have a certificate. I have never taken a class. I don't know what I'm doing. Two, I did do a ton of research on this beforehand. Could I have done more research? Probably, but I also feel like I learned the basics. I read several different blogs. I watched some people on YouTube, and what I learned is that you have a very short window of time to prune your lilacs, because lilacs grow on old wood. So basically what's happening with your lilacs are that all summer long, they are growing what's going to become next year's flowers. And then, they kind of go dormant through the winter, and then spring comes and boom, like everything you're seeing is in the flower wise in the year is a manifestation of what grew last year. And so if you're going to prune your lilacs, you need to do it right after they bloom, because they're going to be spending the rest of the summer developing their new blooms. And if you cut them too late, you're going to be cutting off all of those new blooms. So I felt this pressure to like get out there and get it done. I also felt this pressure to like reshape the bushes where they've gotten like unruly. And oh, you guys, I wish I have some pictures. Maybe I'll post them. These lilacs were phenomenal. In fact, I'm just sitting here like almost in tears because I honestly should have gotten my like big camera out a couple weeks ago and really taken some beautiful pictures of them. They were amazing. But they did start to turn brown, and that's like, this is the time. So here we are, 3-day weekend. I'm so excited, and I was like, I'm going to be at home. I want to go be outside. And yesterday was just an off day anyway. Just, again, I've been in a place of resistance. Probably a lot of reasons for that, but that's where I've been. And so yesterday afternoon, I put a book in my ears, and I just decided I'm going to go out and I'm going to just wander around the yard. And I started with trying to clean up from some of my work from the weeknights earlier this week, where I've been clearing out all of this brush and these dead branches from a different flower bed. Anyway, long story short, I ended up at the lilacs, and I knew it was time. I was like, I just got to cut back, like deadhead them. And I forget the name of the other thing where you're like just clearing out like the dead branches and the old stuff that just didn't grow and nothing's happening with it. So cleaned them up, probably spent like 3 hours out there, and I was pretty focused on the goal. The goal is to create new life, right? And again, part of me is just feeling like an idiot right now, because I'm like, I should have at least like cut some and put them in like some water to like preserve them for longer. But I was focused on my job, like needed to get the job done. This is for next year's lilacs. Come on, Felicia. And so as I'm like, 3 hours pass and I look around, and I all of a sudden am completely overcome. Like, these gorgeous lilacs are now on the ground. And I just started crying. I could not stop crying. And I'm just filled with worry. I'm like, I know I read and prepared and everything, but like, this feels like a leap of faith of like, what if they don't come back next year? Like, what if I mess this up somehow? Like all of these fears. And I realized like, this is, I guess I feel like a trimmed lilac. And not that I don't feel like I was like flowering in Denver and now I'm nothing. It's just, it feels like you get put into a new environment. Like, there's a part of you that gets stripped back. And in order to have new growth, in order to become who you are going to continue to become, to do the right work, like there's an amount of a loss. It's why for the past few weeks I've been talking about grieving change and all of the feelings that come with it. And this is something very real that I'm experiencing right now, and I know I'm not alone. I know that many of us are grieving the changes of our life. And this is a constant process of us becoming who we want to be. But then also every time you step into that, you're not who you used to be. And sometimes it's very painful. And sometimes it does feel like gorgeous lilacs on the ground. And sometimes that just sucks. Like, sometimes it's painful. Sometimes it's worth crying over. And I'm feeling that a lot in my life right now. I'm feeling like it's going to take some time for me to grow back again. And it's not that anything is bad. It's just, it's all been so much. In fact, one of the things that I've been realizing is I've spent a ton of time out in the yard this week, which is just so good for you. But one of the things that keeps coming into my mind the more that I'm just out there without my phone, either with music in my ears or just listening to the birds. There's so many birds here. One of the things I've been thinking about is that I'm just so overwhelmed. My life has changed so much in the past we can just say 6 months, and it's going to keep changing. And it's hard because, I've been working on this podcast and my Patreon, and so much of that is a thread from who I was before the pandemic, right? I was a yoga teacher and self-employed photographer, and then COVID happened, and then I pivoted and I created a bit from within and kept yoga going online that way, got really into meditation, my lunar guides, became a certified astrologer, incredible, absolutely loved that, decided to close my business, I'm not officially closed or anything, but in order to relocate, I had to close up being a photographer. I didn't want to do that full time anymore and transitioned into a brand new career, one that I'm absolutely loving and takes up more than 40 hours of my week. And it's been an amazing work-life balance, because when I'm thinking about work, I'm just thinking about that. And I get my paycheck and I'm so grateful for it. And it doesn't feel like the burden of all of that is on me. I don't have to sit down at QuickBooks and be like, okay, what did I spend money on postage and this? And, it's just different. And I'm very much needed that separation. And I got it and I love it. And here I am. Now I've relocated. Suddenly I feel like I've woken up. I'm in New York. I'm looking at this land and I'm like, okay, I'm this new person now. I want to be outside. I am tired. I need to take a nap. I need to work on stuff for my house. And I am truly feeling like I've got to keep trimming back for new growth. And one of the things I've been thinking about is that I just think I need to take the summer off from a bit from within in some ways. And I'm hesitant to share that, but I also know that it's okay, right? It's okay to take a break. It's okay to take a break. And I think I'm gonna still keep doing the podcast. I might give myself just a little bit more space with it. Maybe it'll do it every week, but maybe it won't be, 35, 45-minute episodes. Maybe it will be. I'm not sure. I'm just going to take a little bit of that pressure off of it. I think I'm going to go cut back to maybe one yoga class a month. Maybe I'll do 2, but I think just 1 for now. I'm going to cut back on the meditations, even though that kind of has naturally happened anyway. I just can't do it all. And I think I'm going to take the summer off of designing my lunar guides. I'm going to do 1 more for this full moon coming up this week. And then I'm just going to take a break for the summer, take a vacation. In fact, I've never given myself that moment, that summer vacation. And that's one other thing I've been thinking about is just how important that stuff is and how long I've gone without giving myself that. In fact, I was just thinking about a little trip for this summer, and it's for me, there's always reasons. There's so much to arrange that sometimes it can feel harder to take a break than just to keep going. In fact, that's something I've been thinking about a lot, and part of what I think was so hard for me yesterday is the more that I've been feeling this anxiety bubbling up inside of me, the more I've just been okay, control it, fix it, do something, change it, this is all on you. And the more that I've realized that I can't keep practicing being that way if that's not how I want to be. And this is very painful stuff. In fact, I sat down to record this podcast, and I knew I was going to be spacious today. I'm meant to do more yard work, but it's 80 degrees outside, and my hand is literally numb still from the garden shears from yesterday, the work with the lilacs. And so I'm trying to honor that part of myself that's going to be a little bit lower energy today, and that's okay. Luckily I was just I'm so excited that I don't have to go do my normal day job after recording. I can just be spacious. So I sat down to get some finance stuff done, which is never fun. And that was something I did fueled by anxiety. And then I was okay, now I'm going to go do my podcast. And I sat down and I almost pressed record, and then I realized I'm like, God, I'm a mess right now, and I think it's fine to share when you're vulnerable and emotional and whatnot, but I'm like, is that what I want to practice? Would I want anyone else to practice that? No, absolutely not. So I just took a moment. I looked around and realized some of the stuff physically in this room that if I kind of cleaned it up a little bit more would bring more environmental alignment, right? Just make me feel a little bit better. That takes care of me. And then I just realized I'm like, I just need to get on my yoga mat. Luckily, I have my yoga mat set up on the opposite end of my office here. And I got on the mat and just put myself into a little restorative heart lift with some blocks and just laid down. And then after about 5 minutes of that, I could just feel my body wanted something a little different. So I set up a different restorative pose, like a restorative legs up the wall. And I laid there and I fell into like a deep, like trance, essentially like a restorative moment, like you're a parasympathetic nervous response, a system response where you're not asleep. It's kind of like a yoga nidra. You're not asleep and you're not awake. You're just in a place of restoration. It's incredible. And I could feel myself in this moment, and I could feel myself just kind of weightless and also heavy. And I felt myself just feel like I needed to just be there right now. And I could feel all of this stuff kind of moving in and out of my consciousness, things that were upcoming, things that my heart is, worried about, things that I am in resistance over, some things that are coming up that I'm very excited for and nervous about. And then just that feeling again of like, it's time to take a break. It's time to cut back. It's time to give yourself more space. And every time I've given myself more space, it's exactly what I've needed and what I've wanted. And for some reason, not that I ever learned this, but I must have practiced it along the way. It's like I don't believe I'm worth it. Like I don't believe I'm worth space. Like space is such a luxury, and I treat it like it's something that I'm not worthy of having, and I need it so bad. And so I just think it's time to give myself that space. And when I kind of started to come out of my restorative moment, I didn't cry, but I just felt like this physical relief. And it was so interesting because right then the song switched. I had been playing some yoga music. Actually, I think I was playing my full moon playlist on Spotify. You can find it if you want to. All of my playlists start with like a yoga, and that's not meaning anything other than I wanted to be able to find it quickly when I was teaching yoga classes a lot. And so I just put all my yoga playlists with the word A in front of it, so it'd be at the top of the list. And you can find me, Felicia Marty. I'm sure you could, I believe all my yoga playlists are public. But so I was playing my full moon one, and actually, let me look it up. It was the Alexa Sunshine Rose. Oops, sorry. Almost started playing it. It's this gorgeous, gorgeous song called I Release Control. And the words are just, I release control and surrender to the flow of love that will heal me. And it's just a mantra that comes over and over and is sung, and it's absolutely gorgeous. One of my favorites, and it's something I haven't heard in a while. And I just realized I'm like, that's what I have to do. I have to release control. And again, this is so interesting because this comes up right as we're talking about this opposition with this full moon. Two things can be true at the same time. And I really want to emphasize the importance of that, because there is so much control that I need to release right now. But what does that look like? Does releasing control mean that I'm not going to follow up with the dishwasher people who are going to come over and fix my dishwasher. Well, sorry guys, I've released control. So no, that's not how you move forward, right? But I do have to release that feeling behind it, that it's me having to force it along, that I can force outcomes, that I can make things change, that me going down there and, spending 3 hours with the lilacs are the only way that we're going to have beautiful bushes next year. No. Nature's going to do what nature does. Is it going to get a little overgrown? Is it going to get a little bit crazy? Is it going to... Yeah, it will. But it's resilient. And if I didn't do that this year and I missed the boat, so to speak, and then so what? I mean, the worst thing that would have happened is that I would have said, oh, I missed that opportunity. I'm going to have to wait until after spring next year. Right? That's the worst that could happen. And same thing, I was feeling really emotional this morning. This is so silly, but I was feeling really emotional. I'm flying out tomorrow for a business trip, and I've been wrestling with my United app, and it was literally making me freak out because I was like, I still need to put more information into it and make sure I have everything. And then I thought, what's the worst thing that could happen? Like, if I don't log in properly, like I have my boarding pass on my phone still, I will get on a plane. I will get there. Like, it will work. The worst thing that could happen is that, like, I can't buy a snack on a plane, which I wasn't even planning to buy a snack on the plane. So, like, that's such a silly thing to be worried about. But what? Because a notification popped up on my phone that said I needed to get something done, that I needed to insert information, or I needed to register, sign in through my app, that was going to prevent me. No. I mean, even worse than that, I could print out my boarding pass and do it manually, and I can sit on a plane and I can read a book and it would be fine. I will be fine. And I'm trying just to remind myself of that as I release control, because this idea of control, that like we are facilitating things going according to a plan, that is the thing that has, one, never led me in a right direction. And at the same time, being diligent about what I want and how things work and paying attention is also how I've created a lot of success in my life. So it's a hard balance. And just to tie this all back around, it comes back to, what are we practicing? And for me, I have to practice letting go of control. I can't be all things to all people. In fact, I can't even be all things every single day of my life, right? Some days I'm going to be a gardener. Some days I'm going to be a podcaster. Some days I'm going to be work Felicia. Some days I'm going to be a maid. I feel like a maid. Sometimes I'm running around trying to do all of the housekeeping and stuff. Some days I'm going to be a dog walker. Some days I'm going to, I don't know, stay asleep in my bed. Probably not. That's not very much my personality. But if it was, that would be fine. It's important to allow ourselves to understand that we cannot be all things at all time. And we especially cannot control other people. We can't control what we're moving through. We can't control society. We can't control the obstacles and the challenges that come in front of us. But we are in charge of what we're practicing. And it may not be perfect. It may not be what you want it to be. That might take a lot of time. But for me, I want to practice being a person who knows how to prioritize things a little bit better. I want to practice being a person who can be a little bit more fluid with life's changes. And I really do need to practice that, because I am a little bit rigid. I get things in my mind that things need to go a certain way, and I have a very hard time letting go. Isn't that ironic, coming from a person who just moved across the country? You can see, or I can see as I'm like looking here, okay, that's what I'm trying to practice. I'm trying to practice being that person that's willing to take chances. And it's very hard for me to be spontaneous because I move through life with a lot of intention, and I'm proud of being that person. But there's more space for what's on the other side. And I'm curious about that, and I'm ready to practice it. So I guess all of this being said, I hope that this speaks to your own inner control freak. I hope this speaks to the parts of yourself that are ready for more attention, that are ready to be practiced in a different way. And I hope you feel like you have the space to go for that and do that, and remember that you are worth it, that you are worth taking care of, and that sometimes your self-care is not going to fit into a pretty box. Sometimes your self-care is not going to be convenient for somebody else, whether it's somebody you work for or do something for or help with, your family. And that is okay. They will be fine. It will be fine. And it's okay. In fact, it's important. So I'll take a deep breath as we close today's episode and do a card reading. I've had this Affirmators Love and Relationships deck on my desk all week since last recording, and I think we'll do this one again. Give a quick shuffle here and see what the universe wants to contribute to today's conversation. You probably just heard me kind of biff some of them, but not one did not pop up. Many did, so gotta keep shuffling here. Wants and needs. I take stock of my relationships, and I'm honest about what I want and need from the people in my life. I note the difference between the two. Wants are negotiable, needs are not. Both may be desired, and either may be acquired, but that's getting into Venn diagram territory, and no one wants to draw one of those. And then it says asterisk, and in really tiny print it says, though some of us might need to. Just breathe into that, and hopefully you needed that message. I like to leave this card up on my desk so I can think about it a little bit more. And I hope that you can do the same. I hope that all of this A Bit From Within today resonated with A Bit From Within you. Please keep taking good care of yourself, and I will talk to you next time.